Why are souls born in different dimensions? So think about ecology and how animals are born in different environments and they kind of evolve in those environments based and those evolutions, bodily evolutions that they kind of develop, or the behavioral evolutions that they developed, are suited for thriving in that environment, for getting nourishment in that environment and kind of prolificating or multiplying the particular species or whatever kind of creature that they are, making more of them, being able to find mates and reproduce and either hide or be very strong in a certain environment and kind of be suited to whatever environment that they're in. Souls are born in different dimensions and different worlds for a very similar reason. But the way that they are born is the reason. But why are they drawn to, for instance, why are they drawn to a dimension that's very chaotic compared to a dimension that's very peaceful? You know, just take two extremes. There's a whole lot of variations in between these two extremes, but why is one soul born into a dimension and onto a world that is extremely chaotic and violent? It is probably because, and we're going to be working with reincarnation here, so that's one of the assumptions that we're going to be working with. But and that other dimensions exist, and that there's different worlds in these dimensions, and there's some assumptions based about souls that I have that you'll see become more apparent as this conversation goes on or as this monologue goes on. But if a soul is born into a very chaotic dimension and a very chaotic world, that soul has not really worked past a certain level of development. Or another way to look at it is that soul has a certain expression and self-value that is drawn to this particular dimension, this particular world. It is drawn to an expression of itself that manifests in a very particular way. And it wants to experience more conflict, more violence, more back and forth with other beings, rather than a kind of sedentary and peaceful and inward-looking kind of life. A soul that's drawn to a very chaotic dimension and world, it still wants to experience violence, still wants to experience conflict, and still hasn't worked out something that it's seeking, and that's the reason why it wants to experience these things. If we're working with karma, which is another assumption we're going to be working with, these kind of things aren't mutually exclusive. They kind of go hand in hand. So a soul that's born into a chaotic dimension in a chaotic world, they probably didn't do a whole lot to kind of work past that kind of manifestation, that kind of self-understanding, and that kind of experience of life and consciousness. They didn't work past it. And since they didn't work past it, they're still attached to it. And they might need to experience it again and again and again, and go through similar experiences again and again and again, until they become far more self-aware or work past or experience to the fullest something that they want, that soul just feels drawn to experience. And, born into a chaotic dimension, in a chaotic world. But it's in a similar light. That's why a lot of souls are born as the same kind of animal again and again, or insect, or even a virus. Because every cell of a virus, some souls are so destructive that they can only gain a birth into this particular material dimension by being born as a cell of a virus. They're so destructive and so kind of malicious, and so just not able to exist in a symbiotic relationship with anything, that they can only be birthed into this material dimension as a virus cell. Now, if you're listening to this, we've worked way past that level of manifestation. But in a very similar light, being born in a particular dimension or a particular kind of chaos, that's two things you have to keep in mind: haven't worked past or drawn to experience again. And those things kind of go hand in hand. And also karma at the same time, because, not while karma works with like punishments, and, you might go to a certain dimension as a punishment, at the same time, if you keep on doing certain things and keep on being drawn to a similar place, the soul itself has learned, but it still hasn't purged that. You could call it a desire, though desire is more specific to a particular incarnation rather than a continuous feeling a soul has, but something like desire, where it just hasn't gone beyond that, and it wants to experience it again and again. Some, circumstances where you're just born into a place and you're just so disadvantaged and in so much pain and with nothing going for you, whether it be in this world or another world where you're born into these chaotic dimensions, and you're not born into a body or at a place where even something like a demon will help you, or something like a very chaotic being will help you, or you're born into like a kind of demonic kind of family. I'm just using these terms, demonic and demons, and I'll use angel or something like that just for sake of communication, because, if we're going to talk about other terms that people don't know, then we're not going to be able to communicate very well. So, if you're born in with no advantages, and even if it's a chaotic realm, there's no kind of, let's say, even chaotic family that's going to welcome you into this world, into this realm, because in more subtle dimensions, in the astral heavens and astral hells, a lot of the time you're born into these, especially the astral heavens, you're born into families through kind of like when you pass here or pass in a material dimension. Families welcome you in. You don't need to be birthed the same way physically as in the material dimensions. But like in astral hell, for instance, even if you're not born into like a demonic family or kind of demonic family, once again, demonic family welcomes you in because material birth doesn't happen the same way, just like in the astral heavens. And you're just completely disadvantaged, and there's no guide or anything like that. It could be just a punishment. But there's all these ties and different karmas and different lives, and everything's just tied into each other. Sometimes you're born in just leaving the kind of demonic versus heaven kind of things. Sometimes you're born in dimensions because there's a certain nature to your soul that wants to experience a non-linear consciousness, where you might not even experience time the same way. You might not experience selfhood in the same way. Your consciousness and life in different dimensions there might not be the same separation between beings or the same material manifestation, and energy is very loose, and communication is actually more submersion within each other's consciousnesses and experience of each other, and nothing can be really hid, where life just exists in a completely different way, and time isn't linear. There may be some aspect to what your soul is that you're just drawn to that dimension. There's no part of this process where your soul has to be born in a dimension like ours. There's a whole, there's so many souls. I mean, trillions times trillions times trillions of souls just born in all kinds of dimensions that we wouldn't even understand. I kind of began by talking about, astral heavens and hells, those kinds of chaotic, or like a chaotic dimension versus a very peaceful one, because we understand those things. But there's all kinds of realms that we just wouldn't understand. And I hear about it in some texts, mainly Eastern texts, about different kinds of ways that time and consciousness works, even here, that are kind of like just a different phase of reality, but still kind of here. And all these dimensions can exist in the same place, but at different frequencies. Let's talk about chaotic planets. Everybody likes hearing about those, right? Plant life on very chaotic planets in maybe this universe, or in different dimensions, or in different universes, because there's a whole bunch of universes in every dimension. That's just a loose way of describing this, but some worlds that are very, very timasic, because there's different planets even in this universe. Some are very tamasic. We're kind of in a Rajasic one where, there's restless between darkness and light, so between torpor and inward expansion. Torpor versus inward expansion. That's kind of how we're inside tamas and tattva. Because outward expansion is still torpor, when you're trying to conquer other things, rather than inward expansion. That's sattva purity, rough translation. But tamasic worlds, and let's say, even in this universe, the plant life on a tamasic world, this is a rajasic world, so it looks like we're in between. But let's say a tamasic world, which is, tamas is darkness. Tomas, I believe is how tamas is spelled, yeah. For the gunas. There's 3 gunas whose combination make up the energetic profile of everything in this material universe and all universes, most likely. Tamas, Rajas, Sattva, Guna. I did that in a weird way. Anyway, but a tamasic planet, the plant life itself might be incredibly venomous, might not produce a lot of fruit, and the fruit that it does produce might be poisonous. And it might be more violent, something like a Venus flytrap here, but more reactionary, have teeth that could actually bite into mammals. And societies on a tamasic world, which could exist in this universe itself, because there's all kinds of galaxies in this universe alone. And even in Hinduism, it talks about all this intelligent life in this universe alone, let alone the multiverse. But on a tamasic world, all societies would be built upon a basis of fear and probably individual power, and there'd probably be, despots being incredibly cruel and exacting, like Vlad the Impaler. That might be the usual kind of ruler on a tamasic planet. And there's all this violence, there's all this fear and darkness and cruelty, and power being the ideal and the virtue to be sought, and just constant conflict and war. And even on a tamasic planet, you might have some people who are just, and this could be in this dimension or other dimensions, but even on tamasic planets, you might have a few people who still choose a different nature. Like there's a tamasic world, or a sattvic or a rajasic world, doesn't have like just that kind of nature. It's just extremely more prevalent. So a tamasic world, very, very cruel, very despotic, very fear-based, but there might be some people there might be somebody like a compassionate Buddha or Bodhisattva born every now and then. And you can still choose to be a good person, within your bounds. There's still people who are born there who are probably more sattvic. Like there's people born in this rajasic world who are very good and very bad. But we kind of have a wide range because it's kind of like the in-between of both. Rajas, restlessness between darkness, tamas, and sattva, light. Usually tamas is more about gaining things materially, material-based consciousness, material-based desires and values, whereas sattva is more inward exploration, more inclusive to everyone else, helping other people as they are yourself, yada yada. You kind of get the idea. Sattva, there's no super dogmatic kind of religious person that's very, very sattvic. They wouldn't just be like, oh, you're all going to hell. That's not what a sattvic person is. They'd be like, oh, you're hungry. I want to feed you. Well, I have these desires. Let me meditate and let me just focus on myself and get rid of these things that are bothering me, if they're bothering somebody who's sattvic. It's always like this very compassionate reaction to inward environment and outward environment. Tamasic is very dark, like I just want to be as I am. I don't want to change. Very materialistic consciousness, like I want more of this. I don't care if you have that kind of restlessness. Rajasic in between is very kind of in between the two, where it's just like sometimes you're like, I want that, I deserve this, and other times you're like, oh, you know what? Here, take this dollar bill that I have. I got an extra dollar in my wallet. Just something like that. It's just back and forth, and there's all kinds of with Rajas. It's just back and forth, and there's all kinds of people. Like there's all kinds of people on this planet, but some planets there's either tamasic or rajasic. Sattvic. On a sattvic planet, there might not be any wars, or wars would be very non-violent. They might be, death might not happen in the wars if they ever happen. And a sattvic world, everybody might just want to like live in peace with the environment and help the environment, help each other, not want to take a whole lot for themselves, and just kind of focus on inward spiritual expansion and conversation, philosophy, understanding, exploration, rather than manipulation or consolidation and possession of things. Just expansion and understanding within and without, and communication with each other, and very much also symbiotic relationship with the environment, where you're not cutting down all the trees like we do on this Rajasic world and just using materials and resources. But like this is plural, where like the sattvic, rajasic, and tamasic worlds can exist in multiple dimensions. So this is still explaining how different dimensions can operate. There might be entire dimensions that are very tamasic, where there's all these huge space battles. Like think of Warhammer 40K or Star Wars, but the Empire and Sith everywhere. And there might be some dimensions that are sattvic, where like everybody's kind of like Jedi and everybody's very peaceful. Might not have laser swords, but there's all kinds of variation, and there's virtually infinite universes, which means that there are still many dimensions, many frequencies where these universes exist on these various frequencies. And a lot of time when you see Hindu symbols like an eye on its side, like this, and then you have lines, it's like it's seeing through multiple dimensions within yourself, but also dimensions in external frequency. And they correlate, because a lot of time hell can exist for us right here, right now, if we have a certain mindset, and our thinking is based on fear. Sometimes a lot of it is hard for us to help it. Other times you might have everything going for you, but you choose to have a fearful and possessive mind, and you're creating your own hell while you're here. And there's plenty of people who are very poor, who almost have almost nothing, but choose to have a peaceful and loving mind and give what little they have and take just enough for themselves and live in collaboration with their environment and everyone else. So, just in that, you see all kinds of different people on this planet itself. And this planet is Rajasic, so we have a wide variety. But why are people born in different dimensions? It just entirely depends on, it can be like karmic punishment, but it's also it's almost like our souls punish us through karma. It's not like God is a separate thing, because everything is a part. You could say God became everything. It's not like God was sitting on a throne like, okay, I'm going to create that over there. That's very Western, also kind of Middle Eastern, Abrahamic, and really confining to the divine to the structure of human society, which is extremely strange. And I don't think the divine manifests, and the different manifests in that way. And the various gods, they're just bigger pieces of God, or the source. I call it the source because it's not like God is separate. It's like the source became everything, and then there's different sections of the source that went in various places, are slowly working their way back, and all these different dimensions, all these different worlds and universes are working their way back. But everything's just a part of the same thing, though. Just my ideas, and just a lot of Vedantic ideas and Hindu ideas. I don't know if I'm right. I could be wrong about everything, but these are just what I think that I've learned. And but different gods are different, just bigger pieces of this puzzle. And as the soul progresses, they eventually, they work through the astral and they get to the causal, and every soul is destined to become a god. Hey, the Mormons were right. No, well, it's funny because Mormonism and Hinduism kind of shares a weird similarity between, Mormons kind of, I'm going to butcher the Mormon faith, but also I don't really care that much. But Mormons also kind of believe that everybody, when they die, becomes their own god. It's a little bit more complicated than that. Your soul has to advance, delve within and experience all these things and make progress of ascension before you reach the causal realm, where basically you are a god and you're interacting with other realms. But when you're in the causal realm, you get to create, basically you can create your own universes. And it takes a lot of souls a long time to get there. And then after the causal, you get to the spirit beyond creation, the source. And I actually read recently and found out in even Hindu texts that you don't necessarily it's not necessarily emerging. Your own individuality without selfishness is realized, and you can still be a separate entity with the spirit beyond creation rather than just being merged in. But there's some sources say you merge in, others like you separate entity but completely ascended entity just with the spirit beyond creation. And it's not like you're in a city, it'd be a completely different kind of manifestation, experience, and state of being. But at any rate, different dimensions. There's causal dimensions that are just kind of over dimensions that all these other dimensions are connected to, and the astral dimensions, and then the material dimensions. But the astral dimensions kind of encompass way more universes. But yeah, so it just depends on the soul. Why are souls born in different dimensions? It's about how much they've progressed, what they still seek to understand and experience. That's why souls are born in different dimensions. At any rate, I hope this was interesting. I hope this was useful. If you like this video at all, hit that thumbs up down there. Like this video. It really helps out the channel. It helps get traffic to this video, to this channel. Feel free to share this wherever you want. Feel free to leave a comment. That also helps traffic, even if you just say something like, thanks, or good job, or your ideas are dumb. any kind of comment. I welcome all kinds of comments. Extremely rude ones I will delete, but I try to respond to every comment that's polite. And yeah, anyway, I hope this has been interesting. I hope this has been useful. And most importantly, I hope all of you have a wonderful day.